All right, it's looking good. Here we go. All right, everybody. Hey, welcome to the first Q&A for Subbrief. I'm going to go ahead and have a seat as you guys roll in. Just put your questions in the chat, and we'll get them answered for you. The link to the Subbrief is in the description. As a matter of fact, we are going to add that right now. Let's go ahead and update that. Sweet. Hey, Greenlee's here. Hey, how's it going, William? Good to see you, man. Yeah, we just published our Chinese Type 39 Alpha Subbrief. That went live just a few minutes ago. So we're going to give about 30 minutes for everybody to watch it. And then they should be coming in and asking them questions. Yeah, this is something new I'm trying. What we'll do is we'll edit this down whenever it's done and make it into a short little YouTube clip, basically of your guys' questions, my answers about the Chinese Type 39 Alpha. Okay. Yeah, the link should be in the description now. I didn't have it up in the beginning. I just put it up there. So it should be, yeah, it's there now. You can see it. Sure can. Yeah, so I'm starting to get into Chinese submarines. I haven't chosen the next topic yet. That's kind of what I'm doing here right now as we talk about the Yuan. Yeah, I'm thinking about doing a nuclear one next. Nuclear-powered submarine. I might do the Han, because the Han is kind of iconic in just how bad it was. The Han was terrible. But it was the first Chinese nuclear submarine, so they were very proud of it, very proud. But it was like a rock concert under the water. It's just crazy. So I'm browsing the list of ships now. Here we go. Let me get this opened up. And I'm either going to do the Han or maybe the Type 93. Let me see. What are my choices here? Let's see. Type 94. Sorry, there's one off. So I'm going to do Type 94. That's ballistic missile submarines. The Shang. I've already done one on the Shang. I put that up on YouTube last year. I might update that one. Why don't we do them in order? Maybe I do the Type 91, 93, 95, just like that. Of course, 95 is, I don't think they've built one of those yet. All right, Carl says, nice office. Thank you, Carl. Appreciate that. Yeah, we just got up here. So for those of you that were wondering why we hadn't updated the website in a while, is we had this big delay in our move. But we're finally settled. We're down here. And look forward to publishing a lot of stuff. This is my writing room. This is where I spend most of my day. I do the research in this room. I do the writing, verification, and then I send that data to the studio, which is downstairs. I go down there and I record it, edit it, polish it, make sure it looks nice, sounds nice. I bring it back up here for a final check, sound check, things like that. And then I push it over to the Patreon site. And so that's where, that's kind of the process that I have. I don't do too much in the studio. I just make sure that the recording and effects and everything down there on that PC uh, are good quality. And I use this PC not just as the research and writing, I use it as kind of the quality check because this is the type of PC where, this is what most people have, right? So this is the experience you're going to have, not down there in the studio, but up here. So I make sure that the graphics look good. It's 1080p, 60 FPS, every one of them. And so make sure you guys are very happy with it. Okay, more nice to see you. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a very stressful month about the move, but we're done with that. So from this point on, I'm just working on publishing. We're going to publish a lot of stuff over the next few months. And right now, I'm kind of working my way through the Chinese fleet. I think we're going to start with the Chinese nuclear boats. Like I said, I haven't really made up my mind. But yeah, if we go with the Han, which is the Type 91, I could talk a lot about the Han because it's very old. They're still active, which blows my mind. They need to decom those before somebody gets hurt. And then we can talk about the Shang and then the Sui class, which is the new one. And I don't even think they've built one of these yet. It's like on the drawing board. It's spelled SUI, the Soi class, based on the Soi dynasty. Hey, Paul, thanks for becoming a new member. Appreciate that. There are some videos that are for members only. Just a few extra things that I like to reward you guys with. Sometimes I'll post like an unedited video up there so you see all the gaffes and goofs. Sometimes I do off-topic videos that only you guys see. There's not too many of them. Most of the stuff that I do is on the public side of the YouTube page. But if you do become a member like Paul just did, you will have access to other things, to other videos. Oh, what do we have here? Is my clock 10 minutes fast? Probably. I haven't reset the clock yet. What time does it say? Oh, yeah, it is. I got to fix my clock. Good catch. Who was that? Dan? Funny. Yep. All right, so let's see, Type 95 submarine. Let's read this real quick. Type 95 is called the 9 Victor by NATO, or the Soi class. It's the planned third generation nuclear sub of the PLAN. The PLAN is the People's Liberation Army Navy. It's basically China's military. It was anticipated that the Type 95 submarine has substantially reduced acoustic signature. I don't know how we can possibly know that because they haven't built it yet. They plan on building 5 of these. Will be nuclear powered. And looks like it's going to be built by the Bohai shipyard. That's a new shipyard. I talk about 2 shipyards in the Type 39 Alpha Yuan sub-brief. So we'll be talking about the Bohai Shipyard Heavy Industry Corporation whenever we get into these. But we're not there yet. We're not there. This Q&A, by the way, is specifically about the Type 39 Alpha and the Type 39 Song. What I did in this sub-brief, I combined 2 submarines into one because there was one submarine that they designed and had problems with, and then they improved. That they improved to the point that NATO or America initially believed that it was a different class of submarine. So we thought we had the Song submarine and the Yuan submarine. Turns out it's the same submarine, just with different improvements and equipment installs. So I combined both those submarines into one submarine briefing for you guys. So you guys should, you kind of get a 2 for 1 for that. All right, see, nice setup. Did I do a Delta? Let me check the Patreon page. I don't remember if I did the Delta or not. I think I did the Delta on YouTube, where I talked about the Delta sonar system, but I do not believe I did a Delta on the Patreon. So let me see. I'm checking right now for you. My thumbnail still hasn't uploaded. Okay, let's see if I can edit this. Anyway, sorry, let me get back to your question. leaf page. I'll quickly go down the list of the sub-briefs that we have on the Patreon page. So we have the Yuan, of course, we just did that. We have the Scorpion SSK, that's a French submarine. We have the Typhoon, everyone knows the Typhoon, loves the Typhoon. We have the Bori, that's the new ballistic missile that the Russian Navy has. Yeah, I did a complete breakdown of the Bori SSBN. That one might get me in trouble. I went into some detail on that one. The Yasin SSGN is the other new Russian fast attack. Yeah, I've got like, how many hours is that? It's like 50 minutes, 45 minutes on the Yasin with some great photos, courtesy of our friend Saturnax. Saturnax provides us with a lot of photo material, which we put into the briefs. So he's a good guy. So we did the Echoes. We did Echo 1 and Echo 2. I'm just going down the list of sub-briefs that you guys have access to at the Patreon page. The Mike submarine, the Komsomolets, was a single submarine, one of one in its class, and it sank. And there's a very interesting story about how the crew tried to save the ship over about a 4-hour period. It was very dramatic. That's all in the sub-brief. So the question is that we're answering is, did I do one on the deltas, specifically Delta 3? I don't remember, so we're going down. The Papa is another sub-brief. Papa was another one of one. The fastest submarine, nuclear submarine, well, submarine period, ever built was built by Russia during the Cold War, during the 70s. It was called the Papa class. They called it the Golden Fish. The reason why it was called the Golden Fish, it was so darn expensive to build and maintain. The thing took a lot of money out of the military budget for Russia. So it had the nickname Golden Fish. But it was also kind of like the favorite. It was a double entente with that name because it was a favorite of the Admiralty because they could brag that they had the fastest submarine in the world. But that was secret, so they couldn't really brag about it, you know. All right, I did a sub-brief on the Nautilus that was made into a book. You guys can buy my USS Nautilus audiobook on iTunes right now, or you can get it for $1 on the Patreon page. Same stuff. You know, a lot of people just buy the book, but if I were you, I'd do the Patreon because it's a lot cheaper. And then finally, the Collins class, the Australian diesel boat Collins class, was the first sub-brief that I did. That was last year. Okay, so we've gone through the entire list of all the sub-briefs. We haven't done the Delta, the person that asked that question. So Delta is on the to-do list. Right now, I'm working my way through the Chinese Navy. So we're not going to get to the Deltas for a little while. But you guys are on YouTube, right? You guys, if you look through my YouTube page, I've done a number of videos talking about the Delta and the Bori, those two ballistic missile submarines that I think you'll really enjoy. And I'll have to go back, after I'm done with China, I'll go back and redo, or do Delta. What other ones do they have? They still have the Kilo. I need to do a sub-brief on the Kilo. The Kilo is a really good one. Okay, let's read some questions. This is supposed to be Q&A, and I'm just doing the A part. So let's do the Q part here. All right, let's try to catch up. A lot of people are saying, nice office. Thank you very much. We worked very hard to get this set up, and I'm very proud of it. I appreciate you guys saying that. Let's see, hi, Jive, have you ever read fictional? Oh, yes. Okay, so the question is, have I ever read anything, whether it was in fiction or historical, that I thought was classified? And there was. H.I. Sutton just published an article. H.I. Sutton, fantastic writer. You guys should definitely check him out. What was the topic of that? Let me write. It was while I was moving over the past month that he published this article that blew my mind. I was like, that's secret. What are you doing, man? But maybe it's been declassified. And I'll tell you what it is here in a second. Did he take his website down? Uh-oh. Hold on a second. See? That's why you don't publish secret stuff on the internet, because they take your website down. All right, hold on a second. Let me find them on Twitter. Yeah, the answer is yes, sir. I certainly did find something that I thought was secret, and it blew my mind that they wrote an article about it. And as soon as I see it here, I will post it in the chat so you guys can see it too. Unless it's been taken down, because his website's down right now. Or I can't get to it. It had something to do with the Russian. It was either drug runners. So he's been doing a lot of drug ops off the Colombian coast articles. Or it could have been. Okay, here he is. I'm sorry this is taking so long. I'm going to find him. Don't you worry. I'm going to find him. I'll get to the rest of your questions in just a second. It's blowing my mind that I can't remember this topic, what it was. I'm going down to his webpage right now. Oh, I got to unfollow that. Yeah. What? Sorry, I followed some really dumb people on my Twitter page. I'm fixing that right now. All right, where's this H.I. Sutton guy at? Come on. There he is, H.I. Sutton. I definitely follow him because he's awesome. All right, let me scroll down here. He's very prolific, so I might have to scroll for a while. Oh, did you guys see that they're going to load 6 Poseidon nuclear self-propelled weapons onto the Bori class? Yeah, that's craziness. I'll talk about that in a second. Let's answer this question first. What did he publish? H.I. Sutton not only has the website Covert Shores, he also writes for Forbes magazine, and it was a Forbes article that I was like, too far, man, too far. Yeah, he definitely gave it away. But I'm getting old, and so what I remember as being classified, obviously things become declassified over time, and so it's probably not classified anymore. Obviously, it can't be if you published it. I'm just going back through his history here. Here it is. Okay. It is the Swedish Navy submarine multi-launch torpedoes. What the Swedish Navy does, and they're not the only Navy that does this, but I'm not going to go into any detail about it because I don't know what's classified and what's not. But what he wrote, H.I. Sutton wrote on Forbes magazine, was that the Swedish Navy is loading 2 torpedoes in 1 torpedo tube. Yep. So whenever they launch the torpedo tube, both torpedoes go out and go after the target. It's called the 1-2 punch. And you hit the target twice in rapid succession, and it absolutely sinks the submarine, no matter how big the submarine is, because you get that, shock after shock effect. It will rip anything apart. And the Swedes are not the only ones that do it, but apparently a source in Sweden let H.I. Sutton know that, hey, we shoot 2 torpedoes out of 1 torpedo tube at the same time. Yeah, it's not a common tactic, but it was a secret tactic. Not anymore. So yeah, he published that on May 31st. For those of you looking for it, I'll post the link because he is a good friend of mine, and I want to push his article. You guys definitely need to give it a read. It's on Forbes, and I'm going to put this in the chat right now. Is the Yuan quieter than the Kilo 2? No, it is not. Okay, cool. Sorry that took so long. All right, where are we going? So we answered the Delta question. Audio's a bit laggy. Sorry about that. Interesting approach for reverse engineering German sourced engine. Yeah, that's really. I had some sources telling me for the subbrief that they had actually purchased the MTU from Germany, but most sources said that they purchased, well, they hired somebody, they hired a contractor who was familiar with the technical specs of the German MTU 16V 396 diesel engine, and that they used him and some paper plans to rebuild or build the MTU engine. Um, so that's what they did with that, and they also did that with the French sonar, the TSM 2233 passive bow sonar that is on the Yang or Yuan Type 39 Alpha, right? They did the same thing with that. And then in the Bravo of the Yuan submarine, they added the flank array along the side. All three of those things, the diesel engine, prime mover that pushes the sub through the water, the sonar system on the bow, and the narrowband sonar system on the flank. It's got a broadband mode too. All three of those, which is like the heart of the submarine, were taken from other countries, reverse engineered, and put onto this. China is renowned for doing this. And they don't just do it in military technology, they reverse engineer it as anything they can get their hands on. The biggest thing recently that they've reverse engineered was Cisco network code. And the reason why we have a Yahweh 5G service at all is because they ripped off I believe it's an American company, Cisco, their network control software. They basically just took it and copied it and said, this is ours now. And that's why there's a lot of controversy about Yahweh's 5G, is they essentially didn't write their own software. They just took it and said it was theirs and started using it. And because of the way China runs its economy and how it is, involved in owning the companies that work in China, like Yahweh is a Chinese company, there's no way to go about getting that code back or stopping them from doing that. So they don't just do it with military equipment, is my point. They do it with other things too, like communication software. Um, they knock off purses, shoes, clothing. A lot of it's reverse engineered or cheap knockoffs of the original. So they do that with military equipment too. All right, let's see. Who do we have here? You love my new space. Thank you, D Parks. I appreciate it. Yeah, this is great. I can sit here. It's quiet. I have a beautiful view. I can do my research. This is how I do it. I do research, I do writing, and then this is like entertainment if I want music or something. But I also verify. I make sure I have two sources at minimum, usually more than that, for anything that I write in my sub brief or in my articles. For those of you that aren't aware, I do write for Tyler Rogaway now over at the Drive magazine. He runs the Warzone section of that magazine. So there's me, there's Tyler, and there's Joseph. I believe we're adding to the staff, but those, I haven't talked to them since I moved, so I don't know who else they may have added. But the three of us, mostly them, I don't write that much, are writing a lot of articles over there now. So maybe I can post. Let me post a link to my latest article, and you guys can get an idea of what I do over there. Um, the latest article I wrote was about submarine decoys, what they are, how they're used, and then how to use them effectively. Um, yep. Let me go ahead and, God, this is going to be, I'm going to scroll down. It's been about a month since I wrote an article. And these guys, they're so prolific, they write like an article or two a day, it seems. Tyler and Joseph. Yeah, so I'm going to go back to like May 15th, I think my article came out. It's a long time ago. Yeah, it was something like submarine decoys. Oh, yeah, I also wrote about AUTEC. You don't want to know about that. AUTEC's boring. Well, it's not boring. Submarine decoys. That's pretty exciting. All right, let's go to here. I'm going to post my link in the chat here in just a second. You guys will be able to see it. Oh, here it is. May 14th is when I wrote this, or that's when it was published. Obviously, I wrote it before then. All right, here's the link to that. Bam. So put that in there. Hey, KV Swim, how's it going? Wish shopping for Chinese knockoffs. Yeah, listen, I'm not a big person that I don't know the difference between a real Rolex and a fake Rolex. So, somebody's got a Rolex. First of all, I'm not the type of person that would wear a Rolex. But if I see someone else wearing a Rolex, they'd have to tell me because I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know a knockoff from a real one. So there's definitely a market for the knockoffs. I'm just saying the Chinese companies have an advantage, and it's kind of twofold: is that they reverse engineer or make cheap copies of other countries' items that they invent. Other countries invent things, they copy it and sell it as if it's their own. Okay, so that's one advantage. Also, China is considered a developing country still. Now, so developing countries have certain advantages economically when it comes to global trade. So China being one of the biggest global traders in the world, I think it's second only to America. I don't know who else would be in that running. They certainly don't deserve developing country or developing country status anymore, in my opinion. But that is way outside my expertise. I know submarines. I don't know about trade. Is my clock off? Yeah, yeah. Everyone's gonna. I have to fix the clock. I'll do that before the next one. So here's my plan. I plan on doing Q&As for every sub brief that I publish. So obviously this one just went up today. I'm going to start working on the next one. I owe Tyler an article. I haven't written him in almost 3 weeks, so I don't want to get fired. So I better do some work. Yeah. Yeah, the move up here was a mess. Peter Blackburn. How's it going, man? How's it going, Pete? Let's see, Brian says China places their engineers in Western industries, universities, and research labs. You're absolutely right. They certainly do. And then when they return home with a head full of knowledge, the latest Western industry developments. Absolutely. Now, Brian, whenever they do that, if they come over here to our university and learn stuff and go back to their own country, I kind of don't have a problem with that. That is just learning and growing. And if they have an idea, you know, as long as they go back to their country and they develop the idea into a product or a service, I think that's fine. It's whenever they copy something somebody else invented and then resell it, that I don't have a problem. I don't like that. Uh, Settled in. Yeah, we still have some boxes that you can't see off camera. We're not quite 100% unpacked yet. What's my thought on the Chinese naval buildup? Great question, Joseph Carpenter. So I think the Chinese naval buildup is very concerning to the surrounding nations, be it Philippines, Japan, South Korea, Vietnam. All those countries need to be very concerned about Chinese growing military power because there is no single country in that region that can stand up to the Chinese Navy right now. Of course, with America's involvement over there and with the treaties we have with those countries like Japan and South Korea, just for example, we also have treaties with Vietnam as well and the Philippines, but we have different treaties for different countries. Um, Hold on, we're watching the. Anyway, let's go back to the treaties. With America's involvement, we're kind of keeping, you know, we're checking China's involvement in the South China Sea. Whenever I say check, I'm referring to it as in the chess, term. That we're kind of blunting it. But if they continue to grow, and their ambitions continue to grow, and their economy, I'm talking about China's economy, continues to grow, they're going to be able to declare sovereignty over the South China Sea, the Spratly Islands, and all of those oil fields soon. They could probably do it right now if they wanted to. But the longer they wait, the stronger their navy gets. And who is going to go to war over some oil fields in the South China Sea? Hopefully nobody. But I believe there's countries ready to do it, and some of those countries have relations with the United States. And so I'm afraid we're going to get drug into it. So I do see a problem with the stream right now. I'm hoping it takes care of itself. Anyway, that was a great question by Joseph Carpenter. I am very concerned about the Chinese naval buildup. Now, on the flip side of that, from the Chinese perspective, it is essential that they build because their economy is based on construction and growth. Now, the problem with that type of economy, you can't grow forever. You have to grow, and then you have to pause and kind of, you know, make yourself strong, and then grow again. It's like breathing in and out, in and out. Like America has a very strong service-based economy. Whenever our services, our retail services, are closed down to, I don't know, a pandemic, it really hurts our economy. The same thing applies to China, of course, even in the service industry, but especially in the construction and expansion of their economy. If they can't expand, they can't make money. And so until they shift their economy in a different direction, they're going to need to expand or they will collapse. So the question is, will they collapse or will they expand to the point of going to war? I don't know. Hopefully it's neither. They find a way to maintain their economy without copying other people's intellectual property and not going to war and not collapsing the economy. It's a fine balancing act managing an economy that big. And they have this great project. Uh-oh. I think I just got kicked offline. Okay, no, I'm back. So I'm not an economist, so I don't know a lot about that stuff. But I do know that they have a program called the Belt and Road, or Road and Belt and Road, where they're going into other countries around the world, offering them large sums of money as a loan with like a balloon payment. Whenever they can't make the balloon payment, instead of taking the money as payment from the country they loaned the money to 10 years down the road, they instead take over some infrastructure, namely ports and port management, whether it's an airport, seaport. They're taking over ports around the world with this Belt Road project. That's one way that they can expand peacefully their economy and keep it stable, keep it growing, keep it alive without it collapsing. But I'm very concerned about the Navy buildup moving into the South China Sea to get those oil fields, because everybody knows that's why China's going down there. China needs energy. Oil provides a lot of energy. So hopefully they find another source of energy besides oil and don't maybe need those oil fields. There's also national pride, comes into play here. Everybody, every country has an ego. China, in my opinion, has a little bit higher of an ego than other countries. They're very proud of themselves, and to an extent they should be proud of themselves. But they want what is around them. Like the South China Sea, they believe should be theirs 100%. They shouldn't share it with the Philippines and the Vietnamese. They shouldn't share fishing areas, and that's how they feel. What they lack right now is the ability to enforce that claim militarily, but they're quickly getting there. As I've already said in this stream, I believe that they already have the military to enforce that claim, but it would be a hell of a fight. If they can have overwhelming force, they can enforce that claim without a fight. And I think that's the next step. Anyway, China has pulled the plug on stream. Yeah, the stream is not doing too well. It's very unhealthy. I'm hoping it comes back. Let's see. Someone says, have I read Biohazard? I've not read that book, no. Is it good? Let's see. All right, let me check the sub brief here. Refresh the page. Oh, hey, the thumbnail finally updated on the Patreon. Hey, B. Griffin, how's it going? I'm glad you guys are here. Appreciate it. Oh, no. My thumbnail went back to being all bars. Doggone it. Sometimes it takes a day for the thumbnail to update on Vimeo. I don't know why. Yeah, it's So Poofykins became a member of the channel, Thank you, Poofykins. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I appreciate that. Biohazard is written by a former head of bioweapons program. Wow. That's pretty scary. Yeah, I'll have to read it. All right, let me see here. I'm trying to get a list of our people. Well, if the stream doesn't recover, I'll have to just end this. This was kind of an experiment because we just got here with new internet. And I wasn't sure if we could stream or not. It seems like it's working okay for us, though. What I'll do is, whenever we're done here, I'll edit this all out and get it up as a regular video for you guys. Without all the dead air, dead space. I can't find it. All right. What monitors am I using? I bought some Asus monitors. ASUS. Yeah, you want to use those. So for those of you joining us now, I'm talking about the type 039 Alpha Yuan subbrief. It is just published today. It's over on my Patreon page right now. The link is in the description. It's in the very first sentence. Just click that. You can watch it. It's about a half hour long. And then if you have any questions, if there was something that I didn't cover in that subbrief that you wanted to talk about, come on back here and I'll be here to talk about it. The next subbrief I'm going to do, I believe, is going to be the Han. We're going to start working our way through the Chinese PLAN nuclear submarine fleet. The Yuan, by the way, is a diesel boat, right? So we're going to start with the Type 91. Looks like they made 3 Han classes. Very noisy, very poorly made, but it was the first nuclear submarine in the PLAN Navy. So I'll start doing some research on this and get it going. Looks like they planned to build 5, but they only built. No way did they build 5. Anyway, like I said, I'm going to have to read into this. I thought they built 3. Maybe they planned to build 5 and they only built 3. That's probably what it was. Oh, someone's asking why I don't do United States submarines. The reason why is I talk about very sensitive specifics on these subbriefs, and I don't want to accidentally say something that I should not say about American boats, because not only am I, patriotic to the country and don't want to make a mistake, it would be an honest mistake if I did that. I don't even want to take the chance, I also don't necessarily want to advertise all of our capabilities, I don't want to make someone else's job easier. But I'll be happy to advertise the capabilities of the Yasen, the Bori, the Type 39 Chinese nuclear submarine, the Shang. Yeah, I'll talk about those all day long. I'll give you as many specific. I give you guys frequencies. I go into what frequencies to look for in today's subbrief. Yeah. So I will tell you guys everything about other countries' submarines. I'll tell you how to find it. I'll tell you how to kill it. But I won't talk about American submarines like that. Why will you release an audiobook? Here's what I've done with the audiobooks for now. I've published 2 audiobooks for those of you that don't know. One is on USS Nautilus, available on iTunes. One is on the Akula project, was it 941? Whatever Akula project it was. And that's available on audiobooks.com. So 2 websites, 2 books. Every subbrief that I do now, the audio version of it, I just leave on the Patreon page because, one, it's cheaper for you guys to get it that way. And I'm not trying to price gouge anybody on any of this stuff. So if it's cheaper for you to get it on Patreon, that's where I'm going to leave it. The one reason why I did publish these audiobooks initially is some people did not want to give any money via the Patreon website for whatever reason, I don't know. And so they asked me if there was another way to buy my subbriefs without going through Patreon. That's how the audiobooks came about. And the next thing you know, I published one, and the author loved it so much, the publishing house rather, loved it so much that they asked me for a second one, so I gave them 2. So that's how we got 2 published. Uh, the way that I format the subbriefs now, it's not conducive to be an audiobook format. It's basically one chapter. You know, what kind of book has one chapter in it, right? So what I may do in the future is take a combination of subbriefs, like say Delta 1, 2, 3, and 4, or the Echo 1 and 2, and combine those subbriefs into one audiobook. I may do something like that. That's really what I'm looking at doing, but that's off in the future. I don't plan on doing that anytime soon. So for right now, everything is only available on the Patreon page, because that's the best way for you guys to enjoy it. And you get access to everything. I make everything available over there. So if you become a member, you have access to every subbrief, every audiobook. It's all there for you. You'd love to see a brief on the Gato. So let's talk about what I do subbriefs on. My submarine briefings focus on Cold War submarines. If the submarine was operational during, say, 1955 to 1990, in that window, I'll do a subbrief on it. You know, it doesn't matter what country it's from, with the exception of American countries. Okay, so with that one caveat. But I have done some subbriefs outside of those dates, like the Yasin and the Bori. You know, I've done subbriefs about those two. So I will make exceptions, is my point. What I won't do is I won't go back to World War II. I think World War II has been very well documented. You know, good. You can find multiple books on just about any subject about World War II. So I'm leaving that alone. I believe that that's been explored. I'm doing more modern things than World War II. There's not too many sources that go into the detail that I go into about modern submarines. And that's my niche, and that's my wheelhouse. That's what I'm good at, so that's what I'm going to stay with. Now, Daryl is doing his job. Are we down again? Oh, no. Sorry about that, guys. What's up with the audio? Is the audio bad? Oh, man. Oh, yeah, we have multiple levels. Griffin, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, my Patreon basic membership is called Petty Officer, and it's a $1 membership. And you get access to all the subbriefs and all the audiobooks, all the photos, and some extra stuff too. Like, I like to post pictures of my dog. You know, I don't do that too much, but every once in a while I do it. Because I hadn't posted anything for a few weeks because of the move, I gave the Patreons a special move update talking about pictures of Ohio and West Virginia as we came through the United States all the way up here to where I am now. So there's a lot of extras on that too. Now, if you do the higher tier groups like Supply Officer at $10 does get an extra upload. They get a folder of the slides that I use on the subbrief. So the subbrief is kind of like a slideshow of information slides. But when you watch the video, unless you pause it, you can only watch that slide for as long as it's on the screen, and then I move on to the next one, right? Well, people like to read this and like to have a copy of the slides to read it at their leisure. So that's where the supply officer tier comes in. And then finally, we have a really high tier for division officers, and they get their name added to the end of the subbrief. And if they want something done, you know, they can message me directly, and I'll get it done for them. Like if they have a specific request and it comes from a division officer, I'll move on it for them. That's kind of an unofficial, not documented benefit that they have, because I don't want to promote that. I'm the guy that chooses the sub-brief topic, not anybody else. But if somebody's going to support me the way a division officer does, I certainly will consider giving them what they want. That's just being fair to them. All right. Griffin says the audio is good again. Thank you. Yeah, sorry if it's crackly. Ray DT, thank you for being a member, man. I think Ray DT's been a member for a while. Yeah, he has. A detailed brief on Israel's submarine. You know what? I could talk about the submarine program of Israel. Like I said, right now I'm going through China. And a lot of people want me to go back to Russia. I have some really good Russian sources. So what I was afraid of is going through all my Russian sources and finishing the Russian fleet and never being able to go back to them. I wanted to kind of mix it up a little bit because if every sub brief was from the same fleet, it would get a little predictable. I like not necessarily announcing what the next sub brief is going to be until it gets to be about a week before it's released. Yeah. So I will make an official announcement on Patreon what the next sub brief is. But for those of you watching this live, it's probably going to be the Chinese Type 091 Han submarine. Okay. So something else that the Patreons do, and I give them credit for this in the credit section of the sub brief. If you guys have any sources that have good information about the next topic on the Patreon side of things, leave that link in a comment and like a brief description of where the link goes, and I'll go ahead and take a look at that source and see if I can pick anything out of it. And if I do, I add that into the sources at the beginning of the sub brief and give you a little shout out for giving me the source. Like, for instance, we have this member, his name is Saturnax, and he has a huge photo library of all things naval, military, submarines, ships, you name it, mostly submarines, but he's got other things too. And so anytime I pick a topic, he's always right there with the photos, usually over 100 photos that me and him will go through on Skype, and I'll be like, yeah, I can use that one and not that one. And it takes hours to do that. He spends a lot of time. He gives a lot of time to these subbriefs. So if you guys would, if you're already on the Patreon page, give a shout out to Saturnax, because the man is a big part of putting these subbriefs together from a content perspective. He adds a lot of content to the subbriefs. Yeah, Saturnax is awesome. He's actually really popular on Twitter. He's got a pretty good sized Twitter page now, and it keeps growing. So, see, Drakphil is another YouTube page. I've heard of him. I can't say his name right, but B Griffin, yeah, he does what I do, but with like World War II stuff. He does surface ships too, right? He's more of a historical, or he goes farther back in history than I go. I kind of stop at the Cold War, um, and he does the stuff before the Cold War. He's not limited to that, of course, but the few things that I've seen on his page, one, are very good. I recommend you go check him out. I'm going to try and say his name again. It's Drakenfell. Man, I'm probably butchering that. But he's a fellow YouTuber, Navy guy, really smart, writes well, makes good videos. So very, very happy to promote his channel a little bit. Oh, he used to use the robot voice. You don't want to use the robot voice. Okay, so Fubar38 has a great question. I really like this question. He says, hey Jive, I was wondering what are your thoughts on whether the Chinese subsurface capability is now more of a threat than the Russians, or if not, whether it'll be in the near future. So here's the deal. Is it more of a threat? I would say yes. Right now, the Chinese submarine fleet is more of a threat than the Russian fleet. But they don't have better submarines. They just have more of them in the tactical realm. Like, Russia is big on nuclear weapons. They're much more of a threat from the nuclear side of things. In a tactical fight, in a regional tactical fight to win the battle space, China is more effective with their submarine fleet than Russia is. They're fighting two different types of warfare. Russia is building weapons to never use them. They have doomsday-style weapons that are planet killers, whereas China is looking for a fight, and that's what's scary about China. China's not going to nuke America or any other country, but they will certainly kick the shit out of a country with their weapons. They're very disciplined. Whether it's the Army or the Navy, doesn't matter, or the Air Force. They're very disciplined soldiers and airmen and sailors. They have pretty good equipment. It's not American quality, but it's pretty close. And then they also have a lot of it. And quantity has a quality all its own, and they abide by that. So I would say in a tactical fight, yeah, right now the Chinese submarine force from its conventional submarines and the Shang nuclear submarine, uh, they can win a fight in the East China Sea and South China Sea, a regional limited war. They would definitely put a hurting on that. Now, America's got better submarines. We got better sonar systems. We got better surface ships. Um, I think we're better equipped and better trained. We have better sailors. Uh, an unfortunate truth, though, and I'll just be real with you, our American sailors are not as disciplined on watch and in performance of their duties at sea as the Chinese are. And there's lots of evidence to back that up in terms of watch standing, collisions. When was the last time you saw a Chinese boat collide with a tanker? Just doesn't happen. The only collisions you see is whenever the Chinese boat intentionally rams a fishing boat to try and get it out of its territorial, waters. That definitely happens. That's happened recently. So yeah, I would say you don't want to get in a fight with China navally, and they have finally, I think, crossed that threshold of being more effective than Russia in a regional limited war tactical engagement. Great question, Fubar. Good job, man. Okay, Brian says, I recommend you read To Kill the Potemkin. I have heard that name before. Yeah, To Kill the Potemkin. I'll have to check that out. Let me write that down. Because right now, um, I'm almost done with Burn Notice Season 6, so I gotta find something else to watch. Or read, I guess read in this case. Potemkin. Wasn't Potemkin like a World War I cruiser from the Russian Navy? I guess I'll find out when I read it. Okay, hey, Coin's here. Hey, Coin, thank you for moderating. We have a couple of moderators here. We have Coin today. We have Ghost Dog 688 is here. Grandma, I'm not sure if Grandma's a moderator over here yet. Anyway, thank you for the moderators for moderating the chat. I really do appreciate it. Peter always recommends that book. It must be really good if you're always recommending. I'll give it a look. All right, I have not read Unrestricted Warfare. I've added that to the list here. I'll give that one a shot. Yeah, Potemkin wasn't the Potemkin the ship that shot the first shot of the Communist Revolution? Yeah, I'm thinking that is. Yeah. Oh, you're talking about the Scorpion going down. Yeah, there's a theory that the Scorpion was potentially sunk by a Russian submarine that was off the coast of South America, and it's possible that the two paths had crossed. What's not possible is why would they shoot each other? There was no reason to shoot. But I don't dismiss conspiracy theories out of hand just because they're a conspiracy theory. I believe conspiracy is just another word for teamwork. So conspiracy theories, some of them are true. Whether that one's true or not, I don't know. I did do two videos. It might have been three, but it was at least two videos on the Scorpion, and it's the events that led to it sinking. It's on my YouTube channel. You have to scroll down. I did that like 2 years ago, and I gave my opinion of what the Scorpion, what led to the sinking of the Scorpion. And I think I'm right, but you guys have to decide for yourself. Form your own opinion. How would you rate these Chinese sub-series? Good, bad, or ugly? All right, so I would rate the Yuan Alpha as pretty good, okay? But the Yuan Bravo and Charlie, the two of the latest versions of the Yuan, I would say they're very capable deep water submarines? And I'm glad you asked that question because that just triggered something I wanted to cover today. And I can't believe I'm covering it an hour into this. This is very important. There's a bit of a sticking point as to whether or not the Type 39 Alpha Yuan is a shallow water submarine primarily, or is it a deep water submarine? And the answer is it's deep water. It's designed to go out into deep water, take advantage of the low frequency, long detection ranges that it gets with the flank array that it has, and then engage surface ships, not submarines, surface ships with anti-ship cruise missiles. It has 6 torpedo tubes. We believe they can shoot 4 of the 6 in a salvo, and then shoot the other 2 after they recycle their ejection pumps. So they can get a lot of missiles in the air all at once. And they don't need to work in as a team like Russian submarines often do. They can work independently and overwhelm a single ship's defense, especially if it's an American. American point defense is pretty weak compared to, say, Russian point defense. So if they can get 4 missiles going at the same target, essentially at the same time, that can overwhelm a lot of point defenses. So why is it that people thought that the Yuan was maybe a shallow water submarine? That's because the Song and other diesel boats before the Yuan came out were designed to operate in littoral waters and then do a surprise attack on surface ships. And the Song was pretty good at doing that. And the reason why it was good at doing that is that it wasn't very effective in deep water. It didn't have any advantages for going into deep water and conducting the same anti-ship mission. So it always stayed to kind of the shallows, the Taiwan Strait, places like that, where it could be more effective as an ambush predator, like submarines are. But beginning with the Yuan Bravo, they have this low-frequency sonar array that goes down the length of the submarine that gives them much greater detection range, where they can see the fleets coming from, miles and miles away, farther than they used to. That gives them time to get in position to conduct an attack and then an escape afterwards. So I say the Yuan Bravo and Charlie, definitely deep water submarines. And based on the size of the ship, I would say the Yuan Alpha as well. Of course, these can operate in littoral waters. They just don't have an advantage in littoral waters. Their advantage is in deep water with that long detection range. Now, let's address real quick, why is detection range shorter in littoral waters? There's a couple reasons. One, typically the water is a lot warmer in shallower waters than it is in deeper waters because of the diurnal effect, the sun going around the earth, warming up the water. If it has a shallow water, that whole body of water gets warm, and that reduces the range at which sound will propagate. It takes more energy for sound to move 1 yard in warm water than it does to move 1 yard in cold water. Okay. Also, there's a lot of river runoff, so that dilutes the salinity, making the water less dense. So anytime you change salinity, that is absorbing energy from the water, and less dense water is, it's harder for water, for sound to go through less dense water than it is salty water. The more salt in the water, the more the sound will go through because it's more dense. And then finally, reflection and absorption from the bottom. In shallower waters, all sounds are going to bounce more because there's not much space between the surface and the bottom, right? So it bounces a lot. Every single bounce, whether it's from the surface or the bottom, or a layer, or a fish, or a reef, everything it bounces off of changes the direction that it's going and absorbs a lot of energy from the sound, therefore reducing detection ranges, or sound propagation range is really what it's reducing in shallow water. So a littoral submarine isn't relying on long-range detection from, say, low frequencies. Oh, and that's the final thing. The low frequencies that we're looking at in the Yuan, Bravo, and Charlie with that flank array are physically large wavelengths, feet long, okay? So anytime a part of a wavelength impacts something like the bottom, it begins to disrupt and disturb that frequency, okay? So it can make your frequency appear fuzzy, I guess that's a good word for it, and you need a nice distinct frequency if you want to do any kind of tactical use of that frequency. So there's a lot of disadvantages to operating in littoral water from a sonar perspective. And the Yuan is physically a little bit bigger than the Song. So it doesn't have the maneuverability. That's not a big difference in size now that I think about it, but there is a difference. So it's primarily a deep water submarine. All right. I hope you got all of that. You guys might need to pause and rewind that part. I just threw a lot of information at you. I apologize for going a little bit too far there. All right. Let's see. Hey, 1000% Ace Row, thank you for becoming a member. Appreciate it. Says, miss your voice. Romania here. Well, welcome to it from Michigan. That's where I'm at now. Michigan, America. Michigan's kind of in the middle part of America at the very top. Matter of fact, right over there, that's Canada. I can see Canada from here. Anyway, let's see. I say America has weak point defense. That's my opinion, yeah. How is it true we have extremely layered naval defense, SM2, SM6 ramps, all that? Yeah, I wasn't including SM2 and 6 in point defense. Point defense, I was referring to SRAM, RAM, and CWIS. I believe those systems can be overwhelmed with 4 missiles. 4 missiles. If you have one ship by itself with ESAM and CWIS, and you shoot 4 missiles at it, 2 of those missiles are probably going to hit it. At least one will, and that's all it takes is one. Once you injure a ship, especially an American ship, you're going to disable frequencies, combat systems, point defense. You may even take out the point defense, and then the follow-up attack from the same submarine could follow up with 2 more shots at a disabled ship and finish it off. So, in my opinion, the point defense of American naval ships is weak when I look at the point defense of, say, a Russian ship. They just have they simply have more point defense mounts than American ships have. Okay, so that's really what I'm saying. Now you're absolutely right about the SM2 and 6, the umbrella coverage at long range, but you're not going to have a lot of lead time on these attacks. These submarines are going to attack you at short range, get that missile in the air very close to your ship, and you may get a SM2 off, but you're going to quickly be inside ESAM range and CWIS range in short order. And it's okay if you don't agree with me. It's fine. Hey, Richard Wharton, thank you for coming a member. Welcome to my channel. So for those of you just joining us, I see we have a lot of people watching now. This is a Q&A session I'm doing about the subbrief that I just published today, talking about the Type 039 Alpha Yuan Chinese diesel submarine. That is available over on my Patreon page. It's about 30 minutes long. I cover 2 submarines in this subbrief. It's the first time we've done this because as I did the research on the Yuan, I realized we had to talk about the Song. The Song is the Type 39 submarine that the Yuan was developed from. So the first half of the subbrief, almost half, is talking about the Song. The second half is the advanced variant of the Song called the Yuan. And we also talk a little bit about how NATO classifies contacts, because it's a little confusing with this submarine because it's had several names. Because initially we thought it was a new class of submarine. Turns out it's just an improved version of an older design. So because it has the same prime mover, which is the combination of engine and reduction system and shaft, because it has that entire system called the prime mover, if that system is identical to another type or another class, it's all in the same class. In order for a new submarine to be given a new classification, if you will, it has to have a different prime mover in the engine room. Everything else can be different, but if that engine's the same, it's the same class by American standards. Other countries, I think we're pretty universal in that standard, but there may be exceptions. So it was a little misleading when the Yuan came out. We called it the Type 041 because it looked like a kilo. And we're like, the Chinese made their version of a kilo. Oh, great. We're throwing our hands up in the air. We got to send someone out to go record this kilo now, this Chinese kilo. Well, we do that. It turns out it's not a kilo at all. It's a Song. It looks like a kilo. It's had a facelift. And So they were pretty clever in changing the topside arrangement, which was really smart because the topside arrangement of the original song, Hull 1, was a disaster. Again, and I go over the details of that in the sub-brief. We don't need to cover all that here. But yeah, originally, my point is, originally we thought it was a new class of submarine. Turns out it wasn't. So we had to change the name. So it ends up with two names. So it's a little confusing whenever you read about the sub. I kind of explained that a little bit better in the sub brief. Yeah, all right. Someone says I should bring Daryl into the sub brief. That's probably best if I don't do that. Yeah. All right. So, see, Fubar asked a question about getting sick, like the COVID-19. So I'm not sure if you're talking about family members. I assume that you are. Okay. So, like, let's say you're underway. Like, a lot of times you're underway on a submarine. Um, Now, there's two ways. During my time in the Navy, I went from being underway with no internet to being underway with internet and internet chat. Okay, so it's two completely different worlds. Let's just talk about the world we're in today. There's no sense going back in the past because we're not going to go to that. In the world today, whenever a submarine comes to periscope depth and gets on communication, they download things that they need. Once that's done, they can also get on chat and see Navy approved from squadron websites, not from CNN and all that, news stories about current events. And these are very meticulously selected stories by Navy brass, the squadron level, that allow their submarine sailors to know what's going on in the world around them. Okay? In the case of a pandemic like we have now, that story is so big and affects everybody, they will let the sailors read about the pandemic. And they'll also issue a lot of official radio traffic to the skippers that will then brief the crew on what's going on. And yes, it will affect morale, but it's more important to inform the sailors, about the reality of things than to not inform them and let them find out all at once whenever they pull back in. And because that has consequences that are far greater than just learning about it as it unfolds. Now, there are a lot of things that are kept from sailors underway. But in the case of a pandemic that may be affecting even their family members, because the story is so large, they will be told about it. So what's an example of something that they wouldn't be told about? So in my case, I was underway and my grandmother died. Your grandmother, even though she's family, is not next of kin. She's next of kin. I did not know my grandmother died until after we got back from mission. I had missed the funeral. I had missed everything. And they did not tell me. They did tell me after we came back off mission, and the first port we pulled into, which I think was Norway, they got me off the boat and home again on leave. And it was the captain that told me, the cob was present, and they were very kind and gentle about it. And I understood that we were on mission and they weren't going to pull an asset off mission because my grandmother died. So that's an example of one situation where a sailor won't be told. But in the case of this pandemic, they're going to let them know. Great question. Good job, man. Knocking it out of the park with these questions, Fubar. Appreciate it. Zerberg says, thanks for answering point defense question. Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, I understand that, one, I can be wrong. That's a big step forward for anybody, as you go through life. Eventually you learn that, hey, sometimes you're not right. But that's how I think about it with the point defenses. I've never been that impressed with American point defense. I can't talk about, well, I did write an article on the anti-torpedo systems. I did not cover American anti-torpedo systems for sensitivity issues, but point defense isn't just about missiles anymore. We have point defense against torpedoes now. And I'll link you that article that I wrote. I wrote an article on this, on the war zone. This is where all my articles are written. Of course, the war zone is free. You don't have to pay anything for that. Let's go here. let me pull this up for you. I want you guys to read this article because I think it's one of the more interesting articles that I've ever written. Let's see, that would be on page 4, maybe. I'll put the link in chat here in just 1 second, guys. Countermeasures. I really need to learn to search by my name or something. God, when did I write that one? I really don't remember. Shoot. That's a good article, too, and I can't find it. Oh, here they are. Oh, this is the same one I linked before. Okay. Yeah, here it is. You want to read this. If you're interested in point defense, that will blow your mind. That's good stuff right there. If I don't say so myself. I mean, it's easy for me to say. I'm like, man, that's an awfully good article that I wrote. A little bit biased. Anyway. Thanks for you're welcome. Let's see. Oh, Nutty Hyper says his father served in the Canadian Navy for it's like, wow, 10, 12 years on subs. Yeah, I've had a lot of requests to do the Oberon sub. The Oberon is serviced by many NATO nations. Australia had it. Canada had it. I think Canada might still have one. I don't know. Somebody was telling me they still had one that was operational. I don't know if that's true because that submarine is like 30, 40 years old now. So anyway, I'll eventually get around to the Oberon. It's not very high on my to-do list because I want to cover countries that are very adversarial, and Canada is probably the least adversarial nation in the world outside of Switzerland. Yeah, Luxembourg, Canada, those 3 nations right there. They don't want to fight nobody. You can always quote myself. That's right, I will. And I know on the Patreon page, the new sub brief has the generic thumbnail. I've already uploaded the new thumbnail. It just hasn't come through yet. Sometimes it takes a day. Unlike YouTube, where you can change the thumbnail in a few minutes. On the hosting service that I use, it doesn't always update right away. So I'll try and do that. Oh, someone had a question here. Let me read this question. I'm refreshing the chat. He says, I'm curious what their sonar capabilities are in blue water. Well, we kind of already talked about that with the flank array. The spherical array is both broadband, narrowband, and active. Spherical array narrowband is just about useless, so we won't even really talk about it. Spherical array broadband is pretty good. It has detection ranges that really depends on the environment. This is the hard thing about talking about sonar detection ranges. It's not just the equipment that makes it good. It's the environment you put it in has a huge impact on how effective your sonar is. I'll tell you this, the Chinese sonar, which is a copy of the French sonar, is not as good as the French sonar it copied. So, but it's close, it's in the ballpark. The big difference, and I'm answering Maximus's question here, the big difference is once you get to the Yuan Bravo, and they get that low frequency narrowband capability, yeah, that's where they start getting long detection ranges. I'm talking outside 30,000 yards in deep water for a strong narrowband source. Yeah, absolutely. And someone's making fun of the way I pronounce. I do need to address this. I mispronounce English words, much less any other language. So whenever I talked about these Chinese ports, I mispronounce both of them. And I thank you guys for correcting me, so now I know how to pronounce it. Because I'll be going back and revisiting these ports as they build the Han in our next sub brief and the Shang submarine in our follow-on subs. So the Qing Dynasty. Thank you for correcting me on that. That came from Paul Lin. And based on his last name, he might be from that region. Yeah. Yeah, exclusion zone said, yeah, I agree. Yeah, they copied the French sonar system, and they did a good job. It just wasn't as good as the original. And that's kind of the way copies are, right? You take anything, say a document, you put it in a photocopier, you're going to have little tiny mistakes. It's never as good as the original. That's kind of what they do whenever they reverse engineer. They don't get it exactly the same. It gives them their own kind of unique brand. Anyway, so how long have we been going? We've been going for just over an hour. I think this has been good. This has been kind of an experiment for me to see if this would be interesting to anybody. And I see a lot of you have come in, asked questions, and have engaged. We've also gained a lot of new Patreons during this last hour. So thank you guys. For those of you that have been Patreons, I appreciate your support. Thank you for being patient with me as I moved, and our move got delayed a couple times up here where I wasn't producing any content for the Patreon page. You guys have been very forgiving, and I'll make it up to you. I'll be producing more sub briefs now that I'm here now. Okay, and welcome to all of our new members. I appreciate you guys joining us. And whenever I write the next sub brief, we'll do another one of these. All right. So I think we'll wrap it up for now. Thanks for watching, everybody. And if you have any more questions, leave them in the chat on YouTube after this video goes up, and I'll address them in the chat. I certainly read every one of your comments. I don't always answer them, but I will read them, okay? All right, guys. Have a good one. I'll see you guys on the Discord page. If you don't know I have a Discord page, you know what? Let me put the Discord link for those of you that use. You guys can text chat with me anytime you want. I'm always on Discord. I have a lot more time now, by the way. So let me, just before I go, put the Discord link up. And open Discord. We'll put this in the chat and we'll leave it up for a few minutes. Okay, invite people. All right, so this is going to be an infinite, never expires link. You can share this with as many people as you want. And there we go. So if you haven't already, come over to our Discord channel. I'm on my Discord channel every day of the week. Doesn't matter when it is. Usually goofing off. But if you have any questions about submarines, I'll be more than happy to talk to you on Discord about them. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time. I got to walk over there now. I'm just fooling around on this computer. These things don't even work. I'm going to have to edit this part out. Bye, everybody.